Well, there are concerns about the quality and authenticity of quality of education and authenticity of certificates from certain institutions in Benin Republic and Togo. And that has led to the invalidation of degrees awarded by these institutions as they have been termed illegal. Well, 22,700 certificates validated by the federal government. Some persons from some school of thoughts and well, people with the opposing ideas on this particular issue. Some persons fearing retaliatory response from the government of Benin and Togo. But then, first and foremost, what needs to be established are these institutions illegal even in the country where they operate? Because a certain story was said where an undercover journalist obtained a degree from a certain institution in Benin under 2 months. And that led to a probe which revealed that this was done in consonance or in partnership with certain officials, some racketeering, where you didn't even have to leave the shores of Nigeria or you didn't have to be in the country, Benin or in Togo, to obtain these degrees. It's going to be a worthwhile conversation if you stay put, because there's a second side to it. But then I'll let you know that I have two gentlemen in the studio who are going to be shedding some light and giving some perspective to the conversation. But we do have an educationist who is a professor, actually based in United States. He's an adjunct professor at the Faculty of Education, Department of Educational Management, Prowess University, Delaware, United States of America. He is the president and the founder of the Institute Superior Bilingue Libre de Togo, which is in Lome, Togo. Professor Amani Danjuma Penel. He's joining us via Zoom this morning. In the studio is Lanre Oke, the founder, CEO, Teleschool's Digital Education System. A very good morning to you. Glad you could join us. And of course, a legal practitioner, Barrister Oke Nebedum, attorney and Gavo Law Office. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's go to Zoom first and have the professor tell us what he thinks about this invalidation and start the conversation from there. Good morning to you. Bonjour, professor.
Bonjour. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Yeah.
25 institutions. Well, the federal government saying they are going to be invalidating, or they have invalidated degrees from universities. And so from the reports, I think it's about 5 institutions that have been approved, 2 here, 3 there. But then what's your thoughts about this from the government of Nigeria?
Thank you. Yes, the decision of the government of Nigeria to invalidate certificates from Benin Republic and Togo, I not saying that the decision itself is bad but it's harsh, and it's based on information that are not correct. For instance, for any policy, to bear on the citizens of a country, that policy must pass through what we call regulatory impact assessment. Before a government will take a decision, they have to ensure that the impact, the negative aspect of it, will not affect the citizen to the extent that it will create a kind of emotional trauma. Not only that, economic situations to those who are concerned. So we are saying that it is good for a government of a country to decide the standard, the quality of education to its citizenry. But this issue of Benin and Togo is very particular. for instance, we think that the proper analysis was not done because telling us that only 3 institutions are accredited in Togo, for instance, to run degree program, which is not the right information. I have with me here, for instance, a document. You can see it. It's written in French, and that document reads: offre des formations harmonisées des parcours licence pour les établissements privés de l'enseignement supérieur. It simply means this is the harmonized program by the government of Togo for degree program for institutions of higher learning, private institutions of higher learning. And here we have about 68 of them in this document. There are 68 here. And the program here is for degree. If you go into the document, you discover that even up to masters. So if you are telling us there's only 3 universities that are accredited, maybe that is a problem of mastery of the system of education in Togo and in Francophone countries. If not, we have more than 58 universities or private institutions of higher learning that run degrees up to master's level. So in
Penyo,
that,
let me just interject just momentarily and put an angle to this. Well,
okay.
3 institutions in Togo, 5 in Benin. That's about 8 in total. Could that be the institutions the federal government of Nigeria wants to recognize? I mean, how do you know schools that are accredited by the government of Togo and Benin? I mean, you have a system in place. Those schools are recognized by the country. But just like you'd want to go to the United States to study, you want to go to the UK, and they want to know that you went to a recognized institution in Africa, and they ask you for, your transcripts and your verification and all of that. I mean, couldn't that be said to be what has applied in this case here?
Yes. For instance, we have about 84 students who passed through the Ministry of Education, Nigeria, asking if the Institut Supérieur Bilingue et Libre du Togo is an approved institution in Togo they want to go and study, and the course they want to go to study. And they were given confirmation, they were given okay that the IBLT, the institute, is approved and it runs these courses. So coming to tell us now that it's only Université de Lomé, which is a government university, Université de Kara is government. What's the next one? Catholic University of West Africa, which is based in Abidjan. It has a campus in Togo. These are the schools or institutions of higher learning that have the status of university as it is defined in the Francophone system. But other schools, even centers, also have this capacity to run degrees. So I don't think it's right for the Nigerian government to come back now, because there was a system in Nigeria that controls how these people coming from Benin and Togo are authenticated, that their certificates are validated, and they go for NYC, they serve for years. For instance, our institute, our university that I have the grace to promote is 10 years old. And we have mobilized 6 to 7 batches of graduates from Nigerian nationals who have already served and are doing well in the labor market. So we don't understand. We have also students who are studying abroad in the UK, in Canada, that they can even send their credentials for proof. They pass through our school, and those countries recognize our qualifications. So I don't know. The problem is not the country is sovereign. They have the prerogative, the sole prerogative to accept or reject a certificate from any country. However, in the case of Nigeria, I don't think it is the right thing that was done. Maybe there's another aspect of it that we don't know yet, but we expected that the government will do more work. They have to sit on that decision. They have to, first of all, stop whatever they want to do and go back to really work on this and conduct what we call RIA, Regulatory Impact Analysis or Assessment, before ever the decision is enshrined, which I know it may not. Thank you.
All right, Professor, let me momentarily just have you on the other end while I get the gentleman in the studio with me, the legal practitioner, learned gentleman, barrister Nebedum. Um, please, what is the legal backing? What grounds can the federal government invalidate these degrees?
Okay, thank you very much. I want to start from where Professor, with all due respect, has said that before the federal government of Nigeria begins to implement their policy against, particularly the policy that they've dished us, the de-recognizing some of those certificates, that they needed to do regulatory impact assessment. Whether those regulatory impact assessments are done whichever way he intends or he may have presupposed in his heart, I want to say that law is not emotion. Because he was looking on the side of emotion, they would have looked at the impact, the emotional torture of having
Have empathy.
empathy. Much as I want to agree with him that is an effort in futility for one to engage or to have gained admission and stay there for 3 or 4 years, as a case may be, and they come out only to find out that you have wasted your time, resources, and effort. Yes, but let it be established that law is not emotion. Law is law. Law looks at what is just. Even though law can have some elements of morality, but it does not legislate morality. Law has consequences, which is the opposite of incentives. If you obey the law, you reap from the benefits of the law. If you go foul against the law, you reap the consequences. It is not the first time here. I am aware in my own legal profession that National Open University of Nigeria admitted students and they went through the whole log. The study of law is about 5 years, you understand? And they had issues being admitted at the Nigerian Law School because of issues around accreditation. If the Federal Ministry of Education and if the Council for Legal Education that regulates the study of law in Nigeria, in conjunction in their whole community efforts, were able to put a sanction on the accreditation process of the National University running law courses, emphasis law courses alone, they were not allowed entering into the Nigerian Law School. Then what more? Receiving or accepting or recognizing certificates from foreign universities. So if they feel that they are offended by it, the institutions have the ECOWAS Community Court. They can approach the court for interpretation. But as much as it is the decision of the federal government to so do, and looking into whether at all there are any bilateral agreements, between the country of Togo and the country of Benin Republic and Nigeria regarding education or regarding particularly the accreditation system, especially the course content. This time around, what is being looked into is not the certificate. It is the process by which that certificate was obtained, because the certificate in itself is just a paper. The process by which it was obtained. You talked about a journalist who obtained one within how many months? Is that possible? So it creates an impression that over there, they have what you may want to call shopping malls for certificates instead of learning centers. You understand what I mean? Yeah. So in that regard, I want to very well appreciate the fact that yes, emotionally, economically, they've wasted some time, but you should look before you leap. The law is caveat emptor. Look carefully. It is not about getting to the university to find out whether they are accredited. It is about going to Nigerian embassy or the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to ask, I'm going to a particular country, probably I don't want to mention names. What is the relationship between Nigeria and this country regarding the accreditation system for their universities, so that you don't go waste your time? It is not only, why are they crying foul? Nigeria recognizes certificates from Ghana, and many other universities, or even in those countries, 3 and 5 in the other. So why are they crying foul? They can approach the ECOWAS court for interpretation.
Well, I'd like to get the gentleman Larry into the conversation. He's an educationist, and of course, from your experience, what are the criteria the federal government probably used to assess the quality of education and authenticity of degrees from, schools or institutions outside Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I think that it's important to establish, first of all, in line with what the barrister has said, that standards are critical to preserve any system. For example, if you remember, a number of years ago in Nigeria, we had this serious issue with fake drugs. And what you had was all kinds of quack pharmaceutical companies springing up, manufacturing placebo drugs, which means that all you had in there was powder. It really didn't do anything. Now, on the surface of it, you could argue that maybe the NAFDAC was being overeager in running after these people. After all, as Barrister said, the onus is on you as the user of any system or product to verify. But what you had was a system where people were dying because they thought they were consuming effective medication, but actually they were just consuming powder. And at that time, the very accomplished Nigerian of blessed memory, who was the DG of NAFDAC, at the risk of her own life, stared down these quack manufacturers and made sure that Nigeria largely got rid of them. In a similar vein, you have this issue where people are traveling next door, as the young lady who was interviewed a few moments ago on the street interview said, maybe they had challenges getting admission here, so they just docked into the nearby country for 3 months or 6 months and then came back with a BSc. The government is protecting its own people. What is the content of that degree that young Nigerian has gone to acquire? It has implications for the individual. It has implications for the industry they're going to work in. It has implications for you and I as consumers of whatever that sector puts out, whether by service or product. And ultimately, it has implications for the reputation of Nigeria as a whole. I remember one of my professors in university, I studied engineering, by the way, and he said to me, the quality of the engineering in Nigeria is a derivative of the quality of the study of engineering in its schools. You understand? Yeah. So when you get to a country where they are flying to space, where they're building, continental missiles, intercontinental missiles, all of that is an outcome of what is being studied in the schools. So it's what the IT people call garbage in, garbage out. If you're letting your young people collect fake degrees, and fake has implications. And I think to the question you were asking, we're not saying that there isn't a school there. We're not saying that they didn't register in that country, but as Barrister said, what is the content of the programs that you're registering these children for which you're certificating them? And if they come out with that certificate, how valuable are they to the industry of relevance and to the public as a whole? And I believe that these are the measures that people like the Nigerian Universities Commission, Ministry of Education, have applied to come out to say, well, we're sorry. In your country, this sort of approach might be tenable. But in Nigeria, we have a very, very particular focus and emphasis on education. It's one of the things that has made this country what it is on the continent today. I think somebody argued that you probably have more universities in Nigeria alone than you have in the rest of sub-Saharan Africa put together. I don't know. It might be true. It might not be. But we have a responsibility to protect our citizenry from outcomes that may be non-desirable. I think there's actually benefit for the countries involved in that. Because when at first you don't succeed, the maxim says, try again. You understand? It's not a permanently shut door what the government of the country has said is that your standards are not high enough.
So if you probably can.
I think you need to ask the question. So, what standards would you be referring
Which is what I asked
to?
you. I mean, the
Yeah,
criteria.
I mean, typically, in engineering, for example, I studied mechanical engineering. You have civil, you have materials, electronics, and electrical. Even food science and technologies engineering.
It's
Food
engineering.
engineering. There are standards that are globally applied, and then there are standards that are peculiar to the country.
Okay.
So, what are the engineering philosophies and theories that you want to specialize on in the different arms of engineering? Mechanics, for example, in mechanical engineering, hydraulics, in structures and civil engineering. You understand? These are things that you then check what is being taught in the higher institution.
Okay.
Would it stand the test of international scrutiny? Professors are the ones who run this system. So they've spent long years studying and then developing their own theories about these things, and they are the custodians. Now, what is taught in your university, does it measure up to what is internationally accepted in that area of study? And if that individual who graduated from your institution were subjected to rigorous examination, would they qualify as capable of delivering value to the environment in which they would operate later on? That's one of the things our education needs to get used to. It's not, as Barrister said, certificate for certificate's sake. I mean, it's something for us to think about in Nigeria. Why do we have so many engineers and we're not making cars?
No.
Why are we not building computers?
Richard, question.
So we need to make sure that what is being put into our children, what is being put into the coming generation of leaders, is capable of producing in them the ability to impact their society and the environment. It is valuable content that empowers them to be productive, to be creative, to be generative, and not just someone sitting down for 3 months and coming back that, I have a mass comm degree, or I have
Okay.
an
You touched
engineering
me on the nerve there, Larry. You touched me on the nerve. Let's get back to Professor Amani Danjuma. I believe he's still standing by. Professor Danjuma, the look on your face is not very good. But then I would want to ask, do you have people from Benin, Togo studying in Nigeria? Do you also have people from other parts of Africa, say Ghana, Sierra Leone, South Africa, coming to Benin? I know you might classify all foreigners or all non-nationals as well, but then what is the distribution of people from outside Nigeria or from outside the country Benin coming from other parts of Africa?
Thank you very much. I will take it from where the engineer stopped. He talked about quality of what is obtained in Benin and the Togo. Well, I may not say much about Benin. I'm based in Togo. My university is in Togo. I want to say that Togo is second in quality of education in the Francophone countries of West Africa, after Senegal. And the Togolese government is very much concerned about the quality of education they give to their citizens and to those coming from outside Togo. And I want to tell us that the quality of education is very much okay. And if someone goes to Benin or Togo to obtain certificate in 3 months or 6 months, I wouldn't know. That is a rare case. We just had it one from Benin. But I want to also say that in Institut Supérieur Bilingue Libre de Togo, my institution, we have students not only from Nigeria, we have a student from Niger Republic, from Sierra Leone, we have Ghanaians, we have students from Central African Republic, from Chad, and from other countries. We are a bilingual university, so people come from all over Africa to come and study. And they have graduated. Some of them are doing very well in their home countries. And they studied in our school. For instance, the Controller General of Customs Central African Republic just wrote to me, said he heard about what is happening in Nigeria. He's surprised because he is there as the credential of the institute. And he's doing well. He studied, he studied for 5 years, which we call backflip sank. But if somebody goes there, in every system, I used to tell people, you place human beings into two, and we have one part that gives that gives market to people who are not offering quality, and we will have people who are serious and who go for quality. So if you open an institution, you will have marketers from all aspects. It's either you have people who are not even serious, who don't even what they've come to seek for from institutions. They are there, they will come. They may not even have basic qualifications, the right one, and they will come and you receive money for some of us, and you give them certificate either in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. But we have people who know what they have come to do. These people will leave Nigeria. Let's take the case of Nigeria. They will go to Togo and they will first seek for the right information, the right school, where quality is given before they engage. They pay their money. They stay there for years. Some of them have registered with the Nigerian embassy, or most of our students, of course. And they are there. We also have those who are going there. They will register and have our school ID card, and they engage in other activities. And I don't know, they will find their way back through, I don't know, the marketers of this system, and they will obtain the certificate. And there's no way we can control this system. They are also a system. But what I want to tell all is that people come from other countries to study in our institutions. They go back with the right qualification. And I want to bring back our minds to a conference that was held in Senegal in 2018, in which Nigeria also took part. The Education Evaluation Services of the Ministry of Education took part in that meeting. And they have gone there to harmonize the quality of education between the Francophone countries and the English-speaking countries of West Africa. And we know what was discussed. And that is where we discovered that, yes, in the French system, the 6 semesters for a degree program are equivalent to the 8 semesters in a degree program in Nigeria. I think that work has been done, and many of our students were evaluated on the 6 semester transcript, and then they all passed. Some of them are working; they are doing very well. So it is a human system that we cannot beat down, or we cannot perfect it at once. But generalizing that these people who are serious, who know what they're going to obtain, with those who are not serious, who are just looking for what we call a sympathetic solution to their problems, they will come and then they will obtain this degree like the cases we have. But I don't know. We don't have that in my institution anyway.
Thank you so much, Professor Danjuma Amani. We have to let you go because we're pressed for time, and there's a second part to this conversation. Okay. But then I think you've done justice from your own end, and we really sincerely appreciate you joining us on the program. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, let me come back to you, Barrister. Can the affected individuals challenge this decision by the federal government in court?
Yes, they can, but it will be better because they didn't by themselves obtain those certifications. Those certificates were issued by institutions. And that is where Professor comes in. I was going to ask him, have you ever looked at the list of the 2,000 plus certificates and the individuals or the graduates owning them and track it to the universities involved? Has he done that? If he has done that, then has he ever looked into the policy statement or whatever communique issued by the Federal Republic of Nigeria regarding those certifications or certificates that were rejected, whether they were called fake or whether they were disqualified or whether they were rejected or for what reasons. If you look at the content of that communique and then you marry them with where have we gone wrong, and you can now approach the government like my colleague said, that you can, do a peer review mechanism and then ask yourself, where have we gone wrong? Like when we were in O-level studies, I remember even through primary basic educations, remember that when you rush from the question in a mathematics exams and produce the answer, the teacher will ask you, why is your working? Do your rough works.
Let's see how
On
you
the exercise, do your exercise, do your
All right.
worksheets there. So we want to see the worksheets. What can they harmonize?
I'm going to come back to you, Larry, but then that's going to be after we take this momentary detour. Of course, the federal government is insisting that there's going to be an age cap on students who are going to be taking the West African Examination Council or senior certificate examinations, and of course the NECO examinations. They're putting an age cap of 18. What that means is if you are more than 18, you might not be able to sit for the WAEC or NECO examinations. We'll take this, and when we come back, we would link the conversation to that, and I'll start off with Larry right here on Early Exchange.
Our children of nowadays now, at least their education is faster. So, and there are some children that you will see, they are matured more than their age. That is what I'm telling my sister. For example, like our own daughter, if you see the daughter, she's a very pumping lady, and she has a very good results this year. But unfortunately, I'm hearing that they said a child that is not up to 18 will not enter school. She's cooking, she washes clothes, she does many things at home. It depends the way you train your children. But the reason why governments are not saying that be less than 18 years child should not be enter school, I don't really understand.
At the age of 15 years, they go to school. They go to school. You know that. 15 years, you will see them in the public university. So why
our own?
Why our own? It's not the best, please. It's not. They should do something about it.
In this situation, I have to disagree with the federal government, because in this time, in this 21st century, in 2024, age does not matter. We have 13-year-olds performing a lot of things outside Nigeria. We have 12-year-olds inventing things in other countries. So if we're going to be at 2024, we are going to implement a law that says that a student cannot go to university until they are 18. I feel like it's very frivolous. It is unnecessary. We have a lot of problems plaguing our country. We have issues that need to be addressed. So the federal government putting a law like that into action is misplaced priorities to me. That is not important at this point in time. It is not important. And if we are going to ask those children to sit at home, what has the federal government done to aid them? What are they going to be doing? Because an idle mind is the devil's workshop. If I finish university at 16, a secondary school at 16, and I cannot go to university, so I'm just expected to sit at home until I'm 18, by implementing that law, they're supposed to bring out avenues like tailoring, tech, other things that they can indulge in before they gain admission. If the law is going to be like that, fine, we don't disagree. But what are they going to be doing in the meantime? That's the question. So laws like that cannot just be put into being without preferring measures to help students and to help youths, because at this point in time, Nigeria is really going downhill. So we need to look for laws and policies and institutions that will aid our youth to perform exploits, to do great things. So a law like that is just misplaced priorities to me at this point in time.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Well, one policy that seems to be a bother to people or respondents who we spoke to on the streets of Lagos. I'd like to go to education is now, Larry. A cap of 18 years before you could write the West African Senior Certificate examination or NECO or get into the university. I'd like to juxtapose this with the question I had, earlier. Um, in the West, you have the West, which is the Western Educational Services. You also have NACIT, which evaluates degrees from outside, their region. And what it does is they put it side by side and say, oh, if you had on this out of a scale of 4, you had a 3.5, this is what it will give you on the scale of this. And then they know where to better place you, especially when you're seeking further education. We don't have that kind of evaluation in Africa, where across board, countries in West Africa or in Africa can have like an evaluation system. Before now, the WAEC exams were strong, and then Nigeria decided to have the NECO, and then WAEC seemed like a regional examination accepted across West African countries, and you could use that to go into universities in African countries. And if you had to put that side by side with this policy of age, writing the examination, I mean, is it even the purview of the federal government to decide at what age you should write a regional examination?
Thank you very much. It's interesting you started with the West because when this policy came up, that's where my mind went to. I had the privilege as a child at what we call primary here, what you call grade school in the US or schooling in America. And that's the first time I came into this system where age is actually used as a guide. So I had practically finished primary schooling in Nigeria, but I was a bit ahead on age. So when I got to the US, I was put in the 4th grade, which is like primary 4, because of my age. It was a bit of an argument with my father, who was a professor on follow, what you call sabbatical at the time. But, the Americans insisted that is the system. And, whatever age your child is at will determine where he gets placed. So in a way, why did I refer back to that? Because you see a more advanced society practicing that. There are theories and philosophies behind that says that when you're educating people in totality, 360 degrees, you're looking at not just their academic development, but their cognitive skills, motor skills, social skills. You tend to get into a bit of psychology. So you go beyond basic education. Okay, at what age is an individual positioned, to acquire certain skills, and you're taking on a bit of deeper science now. So one shouldn't say that maybe the Ministry of Education or the minister is pulling this, out of nowhere. It does exist in certain places, you see, but there are structures to it. And it's impressive that that young lady came into that in her commentary on the street interview. We have this habit in Nigeria, all due respect to our leaders, of killing mosquitoes. There's something emotionally soothing about no, I mean, not even sledgehammer. If we sit in this room and there are mosquitoes here now, the very aggressive ones among us will soon start searching the walls. And you want to kill a mosquito so that it gratifies that pain that you felt when one bit you. But, the act of hunting mosquitoes down can be a very time-consuming and rather low-return exercise. Because a smarter person says, where is really the origin of these mosquitoes? If I can resolve the issue there, then I can apply my time in this living room to more meaningful activities than chasing down pesky flying creatures. We have a situation in Nigeria where we're graduating out of high school, probably at this time, 3 now, going to 4 times the number of tertiary education positions we have. And I know that that's one of the reasons a smart person in government maybe thought, let's do this. But you're creating another problem, as the young lady said. So now, if we have 75% of the people not being able to get into school, and the Minister of Education was crying about 10 years ago that nobody is asking, where do this 75% go when they don't get admission? You now want to introduce another 2 years lacuna. You're going to have a crisis on your hands. I mean, young people are very dangerous to keep idle. And that's just one part of it. The other part of it is that Nigerians are generally by nature very aspirational.
Yeah.
Anywhere we go in the world, it is clear about us. They tell you in the US that Nigerians are the only people you see who hold down 3 jobs, go to school, you understand, and
Have family.
and have a family. You know, it's the Americans can't believe just the sheer level of capacity to accomplish things.
Do it with dexterity.
We're not the people that you put this kind of restriction on. If you were saying, and maybe there's some wisdom in there, that academic tertiary education is overhyped in Nigeria, you know, this drive for a degree, and there are many other ways people can actualize, you know, their
Life
ambition,
dreams.
their life dreams. Then, as the young lady said, create the other avenues. Stop running government by limiting. Limiting is a retrogressive administrative policy. Create instead. You understand? Create more vocational schools. Create more internship opportunities. Create more projects that are relevant to society that young people can work on, so that naturally they say, I don't need to go and rush for a degree. I can
Take my
follow
time.
for a year or two. Not that you sit somewhere and say, don't come till you're 18. And then a young child is asking you, so what do you want me
to do? All right, so we just have basically 2 minutes left on the program, and
Really?
Barrister Nebedum, I'd like you to tell me, are there consequences, you know, for pupils or students or the parents? Because if you're not 18 and you refuse not to go with the policy, and you say you want to apply, there are consequences, you know, that might arise from that decision, especially the fact you're still juvenile.
Okay, the first consequence is constitutional crisis. Constitutional crisis in the sense that Section 42, sub 2 says that no citizen of Nigeria shall be discriminated upon or deprived of anything or any rights based on the factor of birth. So now, if you think about birth, its correlation with age, you now begin to ask yourself, how is age even measured? If you want to measure age, you begin to consider factors like scale. You scale it to the value it has. And if it is scaled, you now begin to ask yourself, it is scaled in time, which means that at a point that it has a value that is 0. I'm not trying to be mathematical. That value that it has when it is 0, it means that it started counting from that point, which means at birth. So you are now discriminating against the person on the basis of the fact that he was born at a time when he shouldn't have been born, or because of when he was born,
Which
he
is not
cannot be
his fault.
something which is not his fault. So those circumstances the Constitution mentioned, you cannot discriminate or deprive any citizen of Nigeria anything because of the circumstance of his birth. He didn't bring himself here.
Into the world.
There are circumstances that culminated into something and he was birthed. And when you now add value of 0, because before you begin to measure a thing or consider whether it is measurable, you begin to ask whether it has the functionality, because it can add mathematical functions to it. Whether you add, subtract, or begin to multiply from that 0 to the point that when he's 18 years. So if you look at it, Section 1, subsection 3 of the same Constitution says that if any law or policy or any regulation is in collision course with the Constitution of the Federal Government, that law, to the extent of its inconsistency or the extent of whatever, is inconsistent, it's null and void. So parents might be heading to court, students may be heading to court, people,
NGOs.
myself, NGOs, we may be heading to court to
So-
ask the federal government to interpret, or ask the judiciary to interpret whether this policy is inconsistent with the Constitution.
I wouldn't want us to drag this further, but I mean, you get the picture, you get the idea. And of course, ceteris paribus, all things being equal, we could have continued right here on Early Exchange, because the whole idea is to shape policy and advance development. And just like the learned gentleman has said, we're hoping that we're not headed for a constitutional crisis on our hands. But then, if we had to take cue from what the educationist Larry has proposed, make avenues create avenues where these pupils who are fresh from secondary schools can learn, can gain skills, can learn knowledge, even while waiting to get into the higher institutions of learning. It's been great, on the program today. Of course, we had Professor Amani all the way from United States, who is a founder of an institution in Togo. He had his own side and his own tale to tell. Of course, various sides to the conversations on the program today has created some sort of balance, and we're hoping that the takeaways will inform the decisions of the federal government. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Early Exchange. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time, GMT +1. And indeed, we'll be expecting that the conversations will continue on our various social media handles, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Let's get it engaging. Souk News TV. My name is Temple Barra. And on behalf of everyone who's ensured that you can receive us crisp, loud and clear, do have yourself a lovely day. And do join us for Market Insight at 11. Bye for now.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.